Good evening, welcome to North West Tonight with Annabelle Tiffin. Our top story.
I do hereby declare that George Galloway is duly...
George Galloway sweeps to victory in the Rochdale by-election. The Prime Minister says his election is beyond alarming.
I'm the MP for all Rochdalians, although there'll be no new Rochdalians ever born here unless I can get the A&E back. It's not a small point, that.
We'll get reaction from people in Rochdale and ask what influenced their vote.
Very sound voice for Palestine.
I just thought it's a change.
He's a really good person. He's sticking up for Rochdale and he's trying to improve the environment and everything.
George Galloway won almost 40% share of the vote. Also tonight, desperate for answers and action, the homeowners hit with massive legal fees. Putting in the miles, 85-year-old Barbara prepares for the Trafford 10K.
And for some of us, a wintry scene today, like Rivy Rog took earlier. Will we be building snowmen this weekend? Well, you'll have to join me later to find out.
George Galloway has claimed a stunning by-election victory in the former Labour seat of Rochdale. He took 12,000 votes, nearly twice as many as the independent candidate David Tully, who came in second. In the past hour, the Prime Minister said his election is beyond alarming.
The Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP.
But Mr Galloway was elected, winning a 40% share of the vote in a contest beset by chaos and controversy. In his victory speech, George Galloway said his win was for Gaza.
I do hereby declare that George Galloway is duly elected.
It was one of the most bizarre and divisive by-elections in recent history. A campaign of controversial comments, candidates disowned by their parties, and even reported death threats. The eventual winner, though, was defiant in victory.
Keir Starmer, this is for Gaza.
George Galloway, the leader of the Workers' Party of Britain, is the town's new MP, with almost 40% of the vote.
You're regional,
yes.
And I'll do you.
Thank you. Were you expecting such a resounding victory?
I felt that we were going to win and win well. I didn't see the collapse of the Labour Party quite so spectacularly. I got 10,000 more votes than them.
After a brief round of media interviews, Mr Galloway left the count at Rochdale Leisure Centre for a pre-arranged victory rally in the town. That's how confident he and his team were. The other big story of the night was David Tully, the local businessman who only decided to stand as an independent 4 weeks ago. With no political experience, he came in second.
The local lad from Rochdale who cares about his town and the people in it. And, you know, I didn't engage in any mudslinging. I just concentrated on what I wanted to do and I, you know, engage with people in the community.
This result, with first and second place going to independent candidates, shows a real move away from traditional party politics at this Rochdale by-election. Labour could never have won. They'd already disowned their candidate. But he only got around 2,400 votes. And the Conservative candidate, well, he looked almost relieved to come third. Rochdale's former MP Simon Danchuk, who was standing for Reform UK, limped in sixth behind the Liberal Democrat. George Galloway said he wanted to teach Labour a lesson over its stance on Gaza. But he's also pledged to improve health services in a town with no A&E or maternity unit. He even wants a Primark.
I'm the MP for all Rochdalians. The truth is, Rochdale, as I said on the podium, was once one of the richest towns in England and is now one of the poorest. Rochdale should be a prosperous town, and I intend to try and make it so again.
But with a general election on the horizon, he doesn't have long to show he really is for all Rochdalians. Well, as we saw in my report there, George Galloway held a brief celebration in a motor showroom early this morning. He's been using it as his HQ, and this evening he is back there with his supporters. Our reporter Mairead Smith is also there. I imagine a lot of people there, including Mr Galloway, haven't had a lot of sleep, but still a good atmosphere down there.
Yes, of course, George Galloway was keen to tell me that this is his victory party. And he did question why so many of us were here. Well, we are here because there was so much interest in this by-election, not just here in the northwest, but right across the country. And he introduced himself to me as the MP for Rochdale, said it was the first time he'd used those words this evening, and he said that it felt really good for him. But of course, this was a by-election like no other. And I put it to him when he arrived here, you know, what he would do for this town. And he reassured not just me, but everybody here that he's keen to represent everybody in Rochdale.
I represent the people who voted for me, and I'll try to do my best for all the others.
Have you made promises to Rochdale that you can't keep?
I'm really not sure what I'm doing here. This is my victory party. What do you mean, promises I can't keep? Why don't you judge whether I kept them at the end of my term?
Well, obviously, we are expecting a general election to come round, of course, by the end of this year. So it will be interesting to see what candidates will be chosen to represent the other political parties when that time comes. George Galloway's made it clear his next focus, though, is on the local elections. He says he wants to clear out Rochdale Town Hall and make a change there at a local level, not just at Parliament. And of course, today our reporter Katie Barnfield has been in the town to find out what issues people were voting on.
For voters like Raheel Batty, this election was not about Rochdale.
I voted for George Galloway. About 4 weeks ago, he came to our mosque. He's a very sound voice for Palestine.
Did you vote based on anything he was saying he would do with the area around here, or was it more about Palestine?
It was, to be honest, I never heard anything about my area from him. It was all about Palestine.
Along this street in the centre of town, the controversial politician was a firm favourite.
See this one for the George Galloway, and put the posters over there.
George Galloway, for Palestine as well. Palestine is the most important thing for us as well.
George Galloway, obviously. I just like him.
The obvious answer is...
George Galloway is no stranger to causing political upsets. Elected to Parliament 6 times before, he was expelled from Labour in 2003 for comments he made about the Iraq War. It was as a sitting MP he appeared on Celebrity Big Brother, famously pretending to be a cat.
Delicious.
It certainly makes life very uncomfortable for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party to have George Galloway there, standing in Parliament, denouncing Labour's policy on Gaza. Whatever you think of George Galloway, he's a powerful orator. His rhetoric does command attention.
But his staunch views are also causing concern beyond Labour. Mark Levy runs the Greater Manchester Jewish Council.
The largest Jewish community outside of London live around 15 minutes away from where Mr Galloway has been elected. You must be well aware how his divisive rhetoric will affect Jewish people across Greater Manchester and beyond.
Rochdale was the site for the most unusual of by-elections last night, but it's issues way beyond these streets that led to the outcome. Katie Barnfield, BBC North West Tonight in Rochdale.
Well, people are still arriving here for George Galloway's victory party, and as you can see, yes, he is that gifted orator that Professor Tong talked about in Katie Barnfield's piece, but the next time he perhaps will be addressing people will be back in Parliament as MP for Rochdale. Back to you.
Oh, Mairead, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to some other news now. And depression and despair, even thoughts of self-harm. The effects of shock legal costs on hundreds of people facing bills of up to £40,000 after the collapse of a no-win, no-fee law firm. More than 70 people met in Burnley last night to demand government action. They'd taken out compensation claims to try to fix damp in their homes after cavity wall insulation was fitted in a government scheme. Our social affairs correspondent, Abby Jones, has this special report.
They came desperate for help and for answers about why so many people now find themselves with eye-watering bills they have no hope of paying.
It's just one thing after another.
People like 75-year-old Ian Lofthouse from Burnley. In his bag, a demand for £7,000.
It's the last thing I think about at night. It's the first thing I think about at morning and throughout the day. And I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. If I had the bottle, I'd think about suicide.
Shaking. Actually paying it is impossible.
This man drove over from Yorkshire, terrified after receiving a bill for £21,000 through the post. He was too upset to show his face on camera, but wanted people to know the devastation he was feeling.
I'm scared. I'm scared for my home. I'm scared for my children. I'm scared that people will turn up at the house. I just thought I might be able to seek some guidance as to where I need to go with this.
Those at the meeting only pursued compensation claims with SSB Law because they say their cavity wall insulation installed with government grants led to mould and damp in their homes.
That's my front room under the bay window.
Geraldine Sharp was assured insurance would protect her from costs if her claim failed. But when SSB Law went bust, she found herself liable. She told me she doesn't even know how much she's being chased for. Her demand a jumble of figures.
I feel exhausted. I can't sleep. I'm phoning my family up all hours of the night, crying, getting upset. I mean, it's not us what's done anything wrong.
I'm so sorry that all of you find yourselves in this room.
Burnley MP Anthony Higginbotham says 100 people in his constituency alone have contacted him for help. 1,500 people could be affected across the north.
This was 100% a government-backed scheme that installed insulation using taxpayers' money, and so the government has got to work with MPs, with the people impacted, to put this right.
MPs across the country have now signed a motion calling for the government to ensure all demands for payment are dropped and launch an independent investigation.
There's a political will cross-party to look at what the government can do, so I think they need to intervene very quickly, and it can do that. We've seen that with the post office scandal, how quickly the wheels of justice moved once a spotlight was shined on an injustice, so I feel as though this is yet another one.
Despite repeated attempts to contact the directors of SSB Law, the BBC's been unable to reach them. The Ministry of Justice told us it's liaising with the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which is investigating. The Department of Levelling Up that the UK has serious penalties for firms that don't comply with building regulations. But for those facing financial ruin, that's not enough.
They need to step in now. They need to step in and stop this, because this is wrecking families, it's wrecking homes.
Abby Jones, BBC North West Tonight, Burnley.
Police are questioning a 41-year-old man after a stabbing at a Merseyside leisure centre while children were taking part in football training. It happened at Halewood Leisure Centre last night. The victim needed hospital treatment for cuts to his arm. The company that runs the centre for Knowsley Council said it happened at the front of the building while football training takes place at the back. The Mayor of the Liverpool City region is to get greater powers from government to deal with local issues. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove made the announcement at the annual convention of the North. He described the move as the beginning of the biggest transfer of power and resources to the region in living memory. It'll give Steve Rotherham more say over things like skills, transport and housing. A review into the work of a spinal surgeon at the Old Royal Manchester Children's Hospital has found that 6 patients faced complications or needed extra surgery after being under his care. John Bradley Williamson worked there until 2011. An earlier review at Salford Royal Hospital, where he worked until 2015, also found patient harm. Manchester University Foundation Trust has apologised to patients and their families. Mr Williamson said he had always made patient care his first priority and that complications identified were all recognised risks of surgery. Now, Barbara's 86 next week, and the grandma will be spending the day before her birthday doing her favourite thing, running in the Trafford 10K race on Sunday. Amazingly, Barbara only took up running in her mid-70s, but since then she's been doing regular charity races to raise money for a new building at a Manchester hospice. Stuart Pollitt reports.
You're never too old. No, I started it just before I was 77, and it's given me a whole new life.
For the last 8 years, Barbara has been putting in the miles. What was it like taking it up at that age?
Well, I remember asking my son, when does the pain stop? He said after about 40 days, and that's where I was, and it stopped. I put my running gear out the night before, and if it's not ice or snow, I'm out, regardless, even in torrential rain.
Now the pacey pensioner is preparing for her latest fundraising 10-kilometre run.
St Anne's Hospice looked after my sister, and she died there in 1988. I said to my nephew, let's do a run for St Anne's Hospice, and he found the Trafford 10K. So I ran in that when I was 77, and I've ran in that ever since for St Anne's Hospice.
This is where all the money from Barbara's runs will end up, helping St Anne's to build a new hospice on this site over the next 18 months.
She's an inspiration for us all, and not only is she keeping herself well by running, she's raising an incredible amount of money for the hospice, but she's also really spreading the word, and she runs along and she's got her Just Giving cards in her pocket, so if anybody stops and asks what she's doing, she'll give them a Just Giving card and ask them to fundraise as well.
But that's a Just Giving page.
Yeah, sure.
And we're desperate
Yes.
for money.
Yes.
So as you can see at the moment, we're just doing some site clearance and some surveying.
Groundwork has started on the new hospice site. This is what it will look like when it's finished. And Barbara and her family are far from finished with their fundraising efforts.
There'll be 16 family members running on Sunday. They'll be running at their own speed.
Can they keep up with you?
There's some very fast ones.
But none more impressive than Barbara. After this weekend, she's already got her eye on the Altrincham 10K in September. Stuart Pollitt, BBC North West Tonight.
Oh, good luck, Barbara. Really good luck on that. Now, carrying on with the sporting theme, Ian is here. Big weekend ahead. I can't speak. I have been up for a very long time. Can
I didn't
you
get
tell?
much sleep last night either.
Oh, I feel so bad for you.
Ill.
It is the Manchester derby. That's what I was trying to say. And a lot is at stake for both sides.
Yes. For City, it's all about keeping up their bid to retain the title, which usually kicks into gear around about this time of season, while Manchester United need points if they're to have any hope of a top-4 finish. Right now, that looks a bit of a long shot, given they're 8 points off the pace, but it all makes for an intriguing encounter at the Etihad on Sunday. These days, it's the reigning champions that start as favourites to win.
18th was Liverpool, 19th was United, and now we are this many years winning 7 Premier Leagues in the last decade. When I learned my experience in this type of games, more calm, relax, don't talk much about many things, just focus in tactic issue. And what do you have to do to beat them?
Manchester City, but they haven't been in scintillating form by their standards recently until putting 6 past Luton on Tuesday night. This is the time of the season where they come alive, they live for the big games, particularly at the Etihad Stadium. They have this habit of creating hostile atmospheres that can intimidate teams.
So how do Manchester United cope with the all-too-familiar threat posed by their neighbours?
How do you convince your players they can go to the Etihad and get a result?
Our form. We are also in a good run. Players are ready for it. Players are looking forward to it. I can smell it. So, really enjoyable. Looking forward, excited.
Like City, United made it into the quarter-finals of the FA Cup this week, having recently won 4 Premier League games in a row.
It's frustrating because you start having a belief again that United might be back on the road to challenging for top 4, being back in it against the bigger clubs. I'm going to say this, I'll take that 0-0 right now. Give me that boring 90 minutes of football. I'll bite your hand off for it.
He did do. I've had to have a tetanus jab. Tomorrow, Everton host West Ham. On Sunday, Burnley are at home to Bournemouth. To some good news, hopefully, for Rochdale at last. The club, whose chairman warned could face liquidation without new investment by the end of March, might be on the verge of a takeover. American firm World Soccer Holdings have signed a letter of intent to buy Dale, who are currently 11th in the National League. As it stands, the deal will be put to shareholders at an extraordinary general meeting next week. It's a busy night in Super League. Early leaders St Helens host Lee Leopards, who are looking for their first win. Warrington, who've won one and lost one so far, are at home to Castleford. Wigan, who've won their only game, welcome Huddersfield Giants. But it's early days. Finally, from me, you might recall a few weeks ago in the sports section, we met Gladiators contender Betty from Bolton. I know it's technically light entertainment, not sport, but she had a viewing party for family and friends as she went through in dramatic style to the quarter-finals of the hugely popular Saturday night BBC One show. Tomorrow, she's back on TV in the quarter-finals. I don't know if she wins, Annabelle. Other North West contenders are available as well, but she's the only one I know.
OK, but we'll have to watch and find out.
Tune in, it's dead good.
Is it? Yeah. It's one I've missed so far, but I will watch tomorrow. Right, thank you very much, Ian. Now, since Kay launched Love Where You Live, she has been inundated with suggestions of places that you love, from the seaside to rural towns and inner cities. She's told us all about why she loves her hometown of Marple, and she spent time getting to know local people in Glossop. And this week, she headed west to find out more about a place that one of our viewers, Angela, loves.
Between Wigan and Warrington, you'll find this town, one of the oldest settlements in St Helens Borough. It was an agricultural village until the coming of the railways in 1830, which transformed this small village into the world's first railway town. The Sankey Canal passes through the town and is crossed on the Sankey Viaduct by the world's first passenger railway. Until the mid-19th century, it was known as Newton-in-Makerfield. But now, you guessed it, we're in Newton-le-Willows. So, Angela, you nominated Newton-le-Willows because you love where you live. Why?
I watched your piece about Marple, where you live, and thought, I actually like Newton-le-Willows where I live. We have got everything here. We've got the high street, the bars, the restaurants. We even have an amateur dramatic society that puts productions on that are really good. So I don't see any reason to leave. It's lovely.
You've got everything, and amazing outdoor spaces as well.
Yeah, we've got 2 parks, we've got the lake. Everybody comes down here at weekend and feeds the birds. So yeah, it's really nice here.
The area also has a rich history. Now, did you know that right here on this land is where the last battle of the Second English Civil War took place? It was called Battle of Winwick, otherwise known as Red Bank Battle, and it's believed that about 2,600 men died. And did you know that Rick Astley was born and bred right here in Newton-le-Willows, and this was his childhood home? So what do locals think about Newton-le-Willows?
I live and work here, so I definitely love it. I love the people mainly, the community that the people create. Just a massive family feel.
I think it's the people, the businesses and everything it's got to offer. It's literally smack bang in the middle of Manchester and Liverpool. It's always been a commuting town, and there's so much history here as well. It goes back to the Doomsday Book.
I've noticed this pub is very dog friendly.
Very, very dog friendly. You'd probably find that the whole high street's dog friendly, to be fair. We're dog mad.
It's an amazing place, lots of local businesses. Come and visit us.
That was Sydney, the dog that apparently everyone knows in Newton-le-Willows. So a huge thank you to Angela and everyone there. And if you love where you live, why don't you drop me an email below, k.crewdson@bbc.co.uk. Let me know what's so good about where you are, your town, your village. Maybe it's at the seaside. Let me know, and hopefully I'll join you one day to find out more about it. Now then, to the weather. So, some of us, excuse me, today have seen wintry scenes. Now, more especially over higher routes. It was quite a tricky drive going into the Peak District this morning. And worth noting that the A18 mountain road on the Isle of Man, that was closed a few hours ago. Again, tricky driving conditions. Which is completely contradicting what I'm about to say. The Met Office have just released their stats to say that we've had the warmest February in England on record on the back of an exceptionally mild winter. Now, for us here in the northwest, we got a good degree over average temperature-wise, so fewer frosts than normal, but with that, an awful lot of rain. We had 6 named storms, and for some of us in the northwest, especially Cumbria and Lancashire, 170% of the average rainfall. So, wet and mild, but certainly not this weekend. It will be a little bit wet through tomorrow, but colder than average, and we are still talking about the risk of wintry showers. So, as we head through this evening, the band of rain, sleet and snow still affecting parts of Cumbria and the Isle of Man. That will eventually clear away. There will be a few showers as we head overnight, mainly over the hills where they are still likely to be wintry. Bear in mind the risk of ice for tomorrow morning where you've had those showers. There'll be a frost, some mist and fog around as well. Dry initially for many, but then we start to see the showers merging into longer spells of rain, and again over the hills, 200 to 400 metres, we are talking about those being wintry. The odd rumble of thunder is possible as well. Driest further towards the coast, a high of just 6 or 7 degrees. Now, a better day in prospect on Sunday, and Monday starts off fine, but we are going to get rain later overnight into Tuesday. So for Sunday, mist and fog early doors once again. Cold and frosty to start the day, but on the whole, dry and fine. Good spells of sunshine, but still we're into that cold air. Temperature-wise, we're looking at around 7 to 9 degrees. That is still below average, but as we head towards the middle of next week, we are going to get temperatures getting back towards normal. Annabelle?
Oh, thank you very much, Kay. I could hear you perfectly, but apparently viewers at home struggled a bit because your mic wasn't working. But we could hear you. We got the gist of it. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.